Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome to Freethought in Florida. Freethought in Florida is a production of the Atheist community of Polk County, a Florida nonprofit organization. I'm Sarah Ray. I'm your host for today, and we're going to be talking about street epistemology with Anthony Magnabosco. Anthony is a worldwide promoter and practitioner of street epistemology, which is a conversational method for respectfully challenging claims by asking probing questions to uncover the reliability of one's belief formation process. He has appeared on The Thinking Atheist, The Atheist Experience, The David Pakman Show, Cognitive Dissonance, The Friendly Atheist podcast and blog, as well as many, many other podcasts and shows. Anthony has inspected hundreds of people's beliefs using the street epistemology approach, frequently uploads videos to the YouTube channel, and has given several talks, interviews, and workshops on the subject. And if you're a follower of the method, we have some great, exciting news to share with you today. So let's welcome the most patient man in skepticism, and possibly the whole world, Anthony Magnabosco. Welcome to Freethought in Florida, and thanks for joining me today.
Good morning, Sarah. It's really nice to be here. The most patient person in skepticism, is that what you said?
I believe you are.
Oh, wow.
On a scale of 0 to 100, I would rate my confidence on that claim. Hey, how's your back? How are you feeling?
My back is doing better. Thank you for asking. I had a little bit of an injury when I was on vacation about a month ago in Hawaii, about 5 days into the trip.
Of all places.
Changing out of a wet bathing suit into some dry clothes, and my back just went, and it was the most excruciating pain. I spent 5 days in the hospital, was able to finally catch up with my family who moved to another, that they transferred to a different island as our plan of the vacation. I caught up to them and had about 3 days of limited enjoyment of the rest of our vacation, and then came home. And I've been going through physical therapy. I'm not on any painkillers anymore.
Oh, great.
So thank you for asking. I'm doing much better now.
Yeah, good. Last I saw, it was I can't sit for more than about 20 minutes at a time, and
Yes.
that
It was a problem where I actually set a timer on my phone for 10 minutes so that I can get up and do some stretches or lay down completely. But
Wow.
I wouldn't say I'm 100%, but I'm very close to it. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, you bet. So we should first start and just sort of explain street epistemology, like aside from an SAT word, like break that down for us. What is street epistemology?
Mm-hmm. Complicated word. Okay. Well, street epistemology is an approach. It's a tool. It's a way of engaging in a conversation with somebody where you're using questions and you're not arguing with them. And the idea with street epistemology is to get to the foundation of what is actually propping up people's certainty that their claim is true. What method are they using? And it's really tempting to become defensive or argue with a person if you disagree with what they're thinking is true, or even if you share the same claim. It's really tempting to get focused on what they think is true and maybe even their reasons, and not so much how they concluded that those reasons justify being sure that it's true.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to focus on when we're engaging in a street epistemology type of conversation. And it started in the atheist community. We're really trying to move it out and talk about other topics because it can be used for other things.
Okay, so we're talking about the breakdown of that conversation into you mentioned sort of what, how, and why, or what, why, and how, I guess I should say. And to your point, yes, it is so difficult sometimes when you're engaging in conversation with someone, often someone who you're close to, or you talk online, or somebody in your family, and it's difficult to keep the blood from boiling and the my point versus your point sort of back and forth stuff, and that's one of the things I really like about this method is that it if done successfully, you sort of pull yourself out of that and focus on the how did you come to be so certain that that was true.
Not only does it pull you out of it, it actually seems to kind of pull people out of it as well. It helps, I think, the street epistemology approach. I think it helps distance folks from the views that they actually hold themselves. Because a lot of people become in love with their view and they adopt it as so much that it becomes a part of their identity.
Right.
And by asking questions and giving people time and helping them feel safe to discuss the topic, they open up more.
Right.
And that's seems to be extremely effective in helping a person reflect on the steps that they use to get to their conclusion, and sometimes even back off their certainty. Very often people realize, I don't have a good reason. I didn't use a reliable method. My confidence that this is true is possibly unwarranted. I think I might need to rethink this whole thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens on the spot during the conversation. You can see that in videos where people are thinking about it, or maybe they contact me months or years later and say, I don't believe that anymore. And your talk helped me start on that journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. I want to come back to a couple of points there. One that you sort of brought up about the myriad things that you can actually apply this to, and anybody who spends, any cursory amount of time on, say, your YouTube channel or Read Nice Wonders, will see that these talks are not all just God belief. They range the gamut from political issues and stances that people may have about various politics, um, ghosts, karma, the secret, like
Mhm.
really any truth claim can be sort of put under this microscope and examined.
Yeah. And that's what I think kind of hamstrung us maybe at the start, that we were all approaching this as, oh, this is a really good tool for atheists to challenge God believers.
Mhm.
And it can be used for that. It's very effective for that. You can see videos of that happening. And you're right. The tool can be used for all different types of claims. We recently formed an organization called Street Epistemology International, a nonprofit organization. And while we haven't publicly announced it yet, this might actually be the public announcement of it. But we're going to, I think well, we've already signed up at the table at it, but there's an event called Politicon. It's going to be in Nashville at the end of October. And we want to have a table there. We want to introduce people who are, they're political junkies,
Mm.
and we can see the poor discourse that's happening on political topics,
Yeah.
and we want to get into that arena. We want to see this tool be used more in with political claims in that venue.
Well, in sort of kind of maybe going back to the beginning, one of my questions was sort of, and maybe you hear this. I know there have been some publications online about religious leaders or believers sort of pushing back on the method as an attempt to take away my faith. And what we haven't talked about is maybe an elephant in the room, that this was sort of born out of Peter Boghossian's A Manual for Creating Atheists. And while it's just Socratic questioning, really, at its root, with a fancy title, like, is that biting us? Does that come back at us? And something that we sort of have to overcome as a no, this is not what street epistemology is and will be going forward.
That's a great freaking question, and it's man, I could spend an hour talking about this. So let me just try to touch on the major points, and then we can tug at them if we need to. But
Sure.
yeah, the book called A Manual for Creating Atheists started Street Epistemology. I was an angry atheist looking for ways to have better conversations with people who believe in God, because I was damaging uh, the bridges between my loved ones and even strangers on that topic.
Mm-hmm.
So this technique of street epistemology is perfect for atheists who are looking for ways to help the God believers in their lives take a second look at their certainty and see if it's justified. And by the way, they're going to probably realize that it's not justified. You're going to probably help them.
Right.
So as we went out and started using this method, some practitioners became bored of talking about God. Maybe when you ask somebody to pick a topic, or let's say, hey, would you like to explore a claim about God? They might say, well, I don't believe in a God. Well, okay, well, maybe we can talk about something else. Talk about why you don't believe in God.
Right.
So I think fairly early on, we started to realize this is a tool that can be used for all different types of claims, including politics and supernatural claims and pretty much anything else. But to your point, is an albatross around your neck? I don't think so. I think it would be a mistake to pretend that the origins of this method were something different than it was.
Right.
about a year ago, 2 years ago, I gave a talk at American Atheist called Street Epistemology, a turning point for atheism. Even after I've recognized that you can use this tool for other things, I don't think we need to forget or pretend where this came from or that it can be a really useful tool for atheists. But it doesn't need to end there. And I don't think it needs to be a negative either. Like when we go to Politicon and talk about this wonderful tool, people might ask about the origin of it. And I think we need to be upfront with people say, well, it started with the atheist community. We quickly realized it used for other things. Hopefully it doesn't just drag us down, slow us down, but pretending that that's the origin story was anything different, I think would be a mistake.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I want to talk maybe a little bit about sort of your early venture into this. When you got into, hey, I'm going to go out in public and I'm going to engage people in conversation using this method. What was that like? And I know some of the answers to this, but what sort of things did you learn from those early experiences?
Yeah, I went out with my camera on day one. The first time I did SE, or at least attempted it, I was recording it. And it didn't go very well because it's really hard, especially when you watch years and years of things like the Atheist Experience or Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, these wonderful debates where Christians are getting destroyed.
Yep.
And you look up to these folks, and then you're like, oh, I can do that. I know all the arguments. I know all these counter arguments. And then you go out to try something different. It's really easy to slip back into presenting counter apologetics or facts,
Right.
which don't seem to work. It doesn't seem to get you to the foundation of how a person concluded that their reasons are good. And it can result in something called the backfire effect too. So to answer your question, my first forays out there, at least for like the first year and a half, were not very good. I still have those videos on my channel. They're not quite as publicly accessible. You have to like look at a public playlist. So they're out there. You can see me argue with street preachers and things like that. But it took a while. It took a while of uploading videos, getting feedback from people in the actual various SE communities that fans have created, and then going out and trying something different. The feedback from the viewers was huge in helping me improve at this approach. But it wasn't easy. It's not easy for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it's not instinctual. We think generally, I just need to point out how you're mistaken.
Yep.
And then you're going to change your mind, right? It's so simple. But it doesn't usually work.
Right. Here are the scientific papers on the theory of evolution by natural selection, and if you'll just read these,
just read it.
But no, that's not how it works.
What can generally happen is that a person, even if they did read it, which they might not even, they would probably go out to find websites which they'd be able to find to dismiss the evidence that you've just given them.
Right.
And that's not going to help them. It might even drive them deeper into their belief.
Yeah. One of the other things that I really like about the method and sort of the way that you have promoted it in the past number of years is this idea that we also have to keep an emphasis on the fact that we, as practitioners of the method, we have to be open to new information ourselves and challenge our own positions and rethink our own beliefs, and then be ready and willing to adjust our confidence levels, just like we would ask of any interlocutor that we're talking to.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, I do try to keep an open mind. What's really cool about this approach is that it almost doesn't even matter the belief claim that's being explored, the belief claim that's being interrogated, because we're focused on epistemology, we're focused on methodology, we're focused on what steps did you use to validate your reasons. And if you can uncover a methodology, like just it was actually about a month and a half ago, I had a conversation, but I just uploaded it yesterday. I met a woman on the trail, and affirmations were her methodology. So uncovering a methodology is really useful, whether you agree with a person or not on the claim, because then you can check to see, am I using that same method for my own conclusions on other claims?
Right.
And if you discover that, well, affirmations, I forget her definition of it, was like beliefs that confirm things that confirm my belief or something like that. I can't remember how she defined it. But if you discover, oh, she's using affirmations to confirm that her God is real, I'm actually using affirmations to conclude that my kids are going to the best school.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
It gets you thinking about your thoughts across the board. And that's why it's so useful, because yes, it is beneficial for the practitioner as well.
Yeah. And some of the things that the conversations that I think are interesting are the ones that sort of test a person's view of truth itself, right? Is truth a relative thing? I have my truth; it's true for me.
Yeah,
What you do with the candy example of, can this really be even or and odd? It's the Schrödinger's candies, right? Can this be even and odd at the same time, or one of us has to be wrong, right? If you don't agree with that, then we need to talk about truth as
yes.
as an important cornerstone to all of our beliefs.
Think about every conversation you had with another person about a claim that they make. We generally assume it usually, that they view truth in objective terms, that it's either the God exists or it doesn't, either yoga is evil or it's not. And not everybody thinks that way.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people who say, well, you can just believe in whatever God you want as long as it makes you happy.
Yeah.
Then it's your truth. And that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem. If that happens, you have to set aside whatever claim you wanted to dig in with them on in a respectful way by using questions and explore how they view truth.
Right.
And help them come around on it, because truth is objective. And if they don't see it in those terms, then there are certain things that you can do. Like you mentioned, you can break out a little box of candies and ask them, if I thought that there was an even number in there and she thought that there was an odd number in there, would you agree that one of us is incorrect?
Yeah. There's so much I want to ask, but I know we're running the clock here.
Let me ask. Feel free to ask me anything that you want. I enjoy being challenged in interviews, so there's really nothing that's off the table, as long as it's not too personal.
Sure.
But I do have a hard stop at 10 a.m. I have to do some interviews for RFR.
Okay. So, just out of a personal curiosity, I guess, and I don't know if you get asked this very much anymore, but there was one interaction that you had that you shared early on, back when you were, at the Alamo challenging street preachers. And I thought it was just a really powerful, and it really didn't have a lot to do with SE. So let me give a quick synopsis, and you can correct me if I'm missing anything. The Reader's Digest version is that you crossed paths with a man who's experiencing homelessness. And yeah, after talking to him for a little bit, you decided, let's set the SE aside and, let me see if I can help this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we saw over the next 7 or 8 videos worth of check-ins that you posted, Jeremy was able to get cleaned up, do some interviews, regained employment, and then ultimately at the end of that sort of series, we see him and a friend both housed again. And there's a lot in there I'm leaving out. But when I saw that, I thought, just wow, what an impact that one person can really have in someone's life. Do you still hear from Jeremy? I wonder how he's doing these days. Have you guys kept in contact since then? I know you did for a while.
We did for a while after that 7th or 8th video. There's a lot. Yeah, you're absolutely right. There's a lot there, because I think in the last installment of that video saga, I was interviewing both of them in their apartment, and in the back on the wall was a cross. Yeah. And they largely thanked the God for having, had a role in getting them off their back on their feet, type of thing.
Yeah.
We did keep in touch. I think I met him a few more times off camera. Things just got a little I don't want to disparage the guy, but
Yeah.
he seemed to need a little bit more help than I could provide. Let me just put it that way.
Sure.
So it was for my benefit. I actually had to kind of back off on that relationship.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But a real good guy. Both of them were very, very nice young guys. I haven't seen from them in a couple of years now. Hopefully they're doing it.
Right.
that was such a non-SE type of. I was out there with my camera, and that
Yeah.
just thing kind of went off on its own. It was not SE. Those videos are not public, but I think they're in a public playlist on my channel.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just very
Funny that,
interesting. And oh, go ahead.
I was saying it's funny that you bring that one up because it's not at all related to the main thing that I do. But
Right.
it was just this guy was really down on his luck and needed
Yeah.
some help, and I thought it was important that people see that you can not believe in a God but still have empathy and want to help people out.
Absolutely. Yes. And there are other videos that you've done that sort of rather than showcasing the approach itself, may show some other important things that someone who may want to go out onto the street and do these sorts of interviews with people kind of need to know. You need to know when to say, okay, timer's up. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you have a
Yeah.
great day. Like,
Yeah, you are running into strangers, and to clear it up with your listeners, you don't have to exclusively do SE on the street with a
yes,
camera. That's an extreme minority of people who do that. But if you do it, if you are engaging with people, you never know what you're going to run into, what psychosis a person might have, or an extreme dependence on the belief being true. And we try to view this from a point of not harming other people.
yeah,
And yeah, many times, and there are some videos where I've ended talks because it just becomes apparent that they need it. And even though I could probably ask them questions to disabuse them of their position, I don't.
right,
And that was kind of an eye-opening thing too. Like, you think, oh, I'm going to go out and save the world by helping disabuse people of these false beliefs. And sometimes you meet people who seem extremely dependent on them, and
yeah.
then I back off on it and just let them be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the trope is maybe the sort of person that says, well, if I didn't have God to believe in, I would just be out raping and murdering people.
People have said that.
Keep your belief. Thanks for stopping by. Like,
However, there is a caveat to this.
I don't think they really would do that, but anyway, sorry, go ahead.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
That's worth. Then you can actually make a conversation about, well, how do you think people who don't think that this is true cope?
yeah,
Why aren't other people running around and you must know somebody that doesn't believe in higher power, right? Well, yeah, of course, I have lots of good friends. Well, what do you think is holding them back from doing that? Why?
yeah,
And then you can make a discussion about other people in their life that they know who don't believe it.
yeah.
Some people say that stuff, I think, because they want to protect their cherished belief.
Mm-hmm.
And if I scare a person with a statement like that, he's not going to ask me any questions.
Right. Sort of a defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm. But then again, they may really mean it too. So
Yeah, yeah. So there are some. We didn't really talk about all the nuts and bolts, but there are some things within the method that different people use differently to sort of help guide the conversation or um, add a different layer to it. So, for example, I kind of joked in the beginning the level of my confidence in the belief on a scale of 0 to 100. I like that's a good way to sort of gauge how a person might change in their confidence over just that short conversation. And not everyone does that, and that's cool too. Like you know, whatever way you sort of find that works best for you, or you may not use it in every conversation.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that there are some things that you kind of personalize it and make it your own a little bit. But here are the tips and tricks that we've learned from doing this over several years that you can try out as you're going out having these conversations to sort of figure out what works.
That's a good point. There's a lot there too. So yeah, there are ways that you can go about learning SE and getting comfortable with it and just mimic what you've seen in videos.
Mm-hmm.
However, if you do that and you upload videos of you mimicking somebody, it can come across to viewers, not necessarily your conversation partner at that time that you're interviewing on camera,
Right.
but viewers can look at that and say, look at how insincere that person is
Mm-hmm.
who's asking these questions. He just copied this other person.
Yeah.
So you have to keep in mind the perception of people who will be watching the videos and the reflection that it might have on the method itself. So that being said, it can get people off their chairs and out and engaging with people where you use questions, whether it's being recorded or not,
Right.
if you have a little bit of template to go off of. but don't follow it so closely that it becomes insincere and you're just being a robot.
Right.
Bring your own personality to it. You have the option of asking the confidence scale, which has become so um, ingrained with SE.
Yeah.
Like I'll have a birthday or something, and then people will jokingly, like the back injury post on my Facebook page, they were asking me, well, on a scale from 0 to 100, how confident are you that you'll be heading home, your scheduled time
Oh
or
my
something.
gosh.
So it's become its own kind of meme thing.
Yeah.
The scale is optional, and I often neglect to ask it, just completely forget.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just say this, even though it's kind of trite and people are like, oh, he's asking the scale again. I've never regretted asking it, but I've often regretted not asking it
Yeah.
because I'll have 5 minutes into a conversation and I didn't ask a person's level of confidence to start, and they're already expressing doubt 5 minutes into a talk, and then I'm kicking myself. Why didn't I get a sense of where they were? Because it would be really nice to see if they've switched even in this short amount of time.
Yeah. Another one of those good tools, and this sort of goes back to that know when to walk away, is using a timer. And I loved how you explained that. I think in one of the workshops that I saw, where the approach is sort of, hey, do you have 5 minutes for a quick interview? And then I'm going to set a timer, 4 or 5 minutes. And if you want to keep going, great. But at the end of that time, that's a good place where we can walk away if we want to. And so I think that's another one of those useful tools that that people maybe should really consider. If they're going to go out and have these sort of conversations
Mm-hmm.
with that intent of recording them or posting them or having them with just random folks in the public.
Mm-hmm. Which, as we talked about, is a very small percentage. But even if
Right.
you wanted to talk to your mother about
Yes.
why she thinks Mormonism is true,
Yep.
and it is an extremely sensitive subject, just saying, "Listen, Mom, I'd like to try a little bit of a different approach. Let's go to the kitchen, put a timer on, and we'll
Yeah.
set it for 7 minutes, 5 minutes. Are you comfortable with 4 minutes? Give me 4 minutes of your time where I'm strictly asking you questions, and just try to be as honest as you can. And at the end of that, we'll end it. You can maybe even ask me the same questions in return. How does that sound?"
Yeah.
That might be just what a person needs to commit to this type of exploration of their views. And it's also nice if you are in the field and you set a timer. Sometimes people aren't as honest and open as you might see in videos. Maybe that video just never made the cut because
Right.
they wanted to preach. They
Yeah.
wanted to tell you what they thought was true, and they had no interest whatsoever in honestly exploring methodology.
Yep.
And then when that timer goes off, I could like, okay, well, thank you very much for your time, and then I can move on to somebody else. So it's
Right.
beneficial to the practitioner as well.
Right. But that sort of leads into where I think I'm going with that is those conversations beyond the I am putting on my hat and I'm going to go out and do SE, right? Where you might be in a car with an Uber driver
Mm-hmm.
or on the bus or friends and family, and these conversations. And I think if what you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that these are the majority of the conversations that are out there happening using where people will employ sort of the street epistemology method, which are just random conversations that come up in everyday life.
That's right. Yes. And it could be the Jehovah's Witnesses knocking on your door and people getting excited now because they've been watching SE videos and they feel comfortable enough to engage with that person. Now, it can be challenging if you're on a bus and you're engaging with three people on the same claim.
Right.
And they each have varying degrees of confidence that it's true, and they each have different reasons, and they're all using different methods. So consider your venue, consider the number of people that you're talking with. If you want to try to use these tools, I'm glad we're kind of focusing more on using them as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to like what it is,
Yeah.
because I think we've kind of saturated at least the atheist community about what this is.
Yep.
And we do need to start talking about, well, how do we go about doing it? So if you're thinking about trying this, my suggestion would be a one-on-one with a stranger in an organically raised conversation, like you mentioned in the Uber or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so to sort of help foster these conversations and teach more people about the method, in addition to doing things like this, you have launched a 501c3 nonprofit. You sort of mentioned that earlier. That will sort of help expand that reach of who will learn about SE and employ that in their lives. And one of the things that I thought was great when I started reading up on this, also and reflecting on the process itself and how can we tweak it and make it better and be more effective with it, and sort of the more voices giving feedback on, I'm using it and here's how it's going and here's what I tried, that it just sort of refines that down to some sort of common process, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So we formed the organization so we can direct money from people who love what we're doing and they want to support us on Patreon or Facebook, PayPal, and then Facebook, Amazon Smile, I think is the other one. I think we're going to even do a Bitcoin thing pretty soon. But people love what we do, but they would never feel comfortable enough doing it in public, let alone maybe even organically when an opportunity comes up, they just bite their tongue.
Yeah.
But they love SE. Well, this is a way to support us, give us some money, so we can funnel it to other people who want to promote it worldwide. This isn't just a U.S. thing. So you can be in Cape Town, South Africa, and there's a big conference coming to your area to talk about politics or philosophy or atheism or whatever, skepticism. But maybe you don't have the money for the airfare to get there, or it's a $50 ticket, or it's $100 to table there. You can contact the organization that we've set up and make a proposal for what you want to do, and we will consider it. And then if you pass some certain hurdles, we will give you the funding for that. So we want other people to promote this and get this out there worldwide, and we need some structure to get to that point.
Right.
And then to the other point that you made, there needs to be that feedback loop so that when people are having these conversations, they're bringing. We were talking earlier about not following the script so closely that you're insincere. Bring your own self to it. Bring your own history to it. Bring your own personal experience to it. We need far more diversity of practitioners out there doing this around the world, because there's cultural differences too. Somebody doing SE in Japan may be completely different than somebody doing it in Finland compared to somebody doing it in Texas.
Right.
So that feedback, there might be somebody doing it in Japan that has come up with something novel that would just blow my mind that I could use tomorrow on the trail.
Yeah.
So there needs to be that feedback loop to us so that we can make this better.
Right. And that the need to expand this beyond the atheist community, because it's really grown and thrived in an environment where, and I use that loosely because, right, atheist answers one question and then we disagree about everything else, but in a group that probably leans more skeptic than any other labeled group, maybe, it seems like such a natural fit for us. But you have experiences with, religious folks going out and having conversations using the street epistemology approach. And so it is starting to kind of break through that barrier of the atheist community and get out into a broader community of people that can use this to test claims.
Yeah, there are a lot of atheist skeptics. We kind of broadened out a little bit by giving workshops and such at skeptic events, because a lot of skeptics, they'll just, oh yeah, I've always been an atheist. It's like a secondary thought.
Yeah.
They don't even identify as an atheist. They say I'm a skeptic.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to broaden this out to skeptics, free thinkers. I gave 3 talks this year to humanist groups.
Great.
And they might shy away from the atheist label because there's a certain perception of that, for example, a negative perception, perhaps even. So we're trying to broaden it out. I would love to start going to scientifically minded conventions, people who maybe they're interested in improving the way that they communicate scientific facts to people.
Yeah.
This could be a really good tool for folks in that. Can you imagine Bill Nye using street epistemology?
God, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Oh, let's do that. So, so to get there, we need to sort of build up and support the Street Epistemology International, the nonprofit. So
I
let's.
think so. I think that's the way to do it.
I think.
We have structure now, and
Yeah.
yeah, people are noticing what we're doing too. There's some fairly high profile people who are noticing what we're doing and they love it and they want to support it. But I don't want them to write a check for $5,000 to Anthony.
Right.
I want them to write it to Street Epistemology International so we can get it and be transparent with the funds and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. As someone who recently formed a nonprofit, I know right where you're at.
Mhm.
So, so then, how do you want folks to reach out, get in touch, get involved? I know you mentioned the Facebook and the Patreon are there. What's the best way for people to learn more and then take action to get involved?
The best way might be two things. Familiar yourself with the videos that are being uploaded of the method and watch a lot of them. Don't just watch 2 or 3 and think, oh, that's what it is. Because you might find a video that was uploaded 5 years ago and it's just not the best example today. So try to look for some recent video examples. And then second, find the various street epistemology communities that are out there that are being run by fans of the method. There's a Discord server and there are several Facebook groups. There's a Reddit. There might even be other things that I'm just forgetting right now. But immerse yourself in the community and engage with people who are looking for feedback on the conversations that they're having.
Yeah.
And that's probably the best way to do it at this point. And then, yeah, if you have a little extra money and you want to fund us on Patreon or Facebook or whatever, throw us a few bucks. You have my word, people watching this, listening to this, that we will use it in the most effective, efficient way and transparent way as possible to get more people to learn about this approach. Because I think it's one of the best ways. I think it's honestly, this almost seems like pie in the sky, but it does seem like this actually could be the solution that can improve discourse across the world. And that's why I've thrown so much of my time and effort behind it, because I see the potential.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's at least in the beginning steps been demonstrated over and over again on a lot of the people who are doing this publicly and recording them and posting them. And so I know I'm not alone in the having followed your sort of YouTube journey for a while and have loved learning about the method and employing it in my own life with coworkers and friends and family. But I think that's a great place to end it today, and we'd be happy to have you back. Of course, it's been a good pleasure getting to talk to you and getting to know you. And hey, the next time you're in Central Florida, maybe we can meet up, have you do a workshop with our group, and I'll buy you a drink.
I would love to meet you in person and talk to your group. And my daughter's been looking at some schools in Florida. I think maybe more northern than central. We drove all over that state about 2 months ago. But if I'm in the area, I'll message you and maybe we can set something up. Thank you so much for having me on. And I would love to come back again because I feel like we just scratched the surface of this.
Very much. Absolutely. Yeah. Many thanks again to Anthony Magnabosco for joining us today on Freethought in Florida. If you want to learn more about street epistemology, head to streetepistemology.com. And to learn more about the new nonprofit, Street Epistemology International, that website is streetepistemologyinternational.org. So thank you again to Anthony. I do want to tell you before we go here about the Free Flow Conference happening in November in Orlando. That's November 1st through the 3rd at the Holiday Inn Orlando International Airport. Of course, there are lots of events happening around this. There are some great entertainment and meals, and Camp 42 is providing some kids programming during the weekend. And of course, we have some great speakers coming to Free Flow 2019. We've got, of course, Seth Andrews, Matt Dillahunty, Aaron Ra, sort of the big names in the atheist free thought circles. And we have maybe some more widely known here locally folks that are going to be giving presentations. Dr. Ryan Cragen will be here, Gina Duncan with Equality Florida. So there's Brandon Hott with Florida Citizens for Science. There's just so many great things happening at the Free Flow Conference in November. That's Freethought Florida Conference. And if you want to learn more, if you can make it, we'd love to see you. go to freeflow.org, freeflo.org. That's going to do it for this episode of Freethought in Florida. Again, our many thanks to Anthony Magnabosco for joining us and for you for watching. And we'll see you next time.